3, 2, 1.
Welcome in Life in the Red podcast. I'm Chris. This is Palmer. There's Parker. There's Sipple. It is 3:19 p.m. on Thursday, February 10th, 2022. You may or may not notice I'm wearing a giant white mask right now.
I didn't notice. That's odd.
Barely
until you
visible.
said something, I hadn't noticed.
Yeah, it's just one of those things you want to point out so it's not weird to people. But
2022, it's life in 2022.
Yeah, it's like when you got a piece of food stuck in your teeth. I had COVID last week, which is the reason I'm wearing the mask. I'm currently I'm out of my 5 days of isolation, but still in my 5 extra days of wearing a mask around this little hellion currently on my shoulder. So I'm going to have the mask on here while we're doing this. So bear
the
with
most
me.
Astute of our podcast observers may have noticed that you were in a different part of your expansive home last week.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. Palmer, what do you have to say about it? Look. There he
Palmer,
is.
you
Hi
can
to the
chime
people.
in if you need to.
Hi to the people.
Bullet too, honestly.
Yeah, Bullet too. Gus is around here somewhere.
Strangely.
Let's get into it. Yeah, let's get into it. Palmer says. There you go. We're gonna talk some football. We're gonna talk hoops. Nebraska, of course, beat Minnesota last night for the first Big Ten win of the season. We'll talk a little baseball. Regular season starts a week from Friday. But let's start as we always do with football. ESPN's Bill Connolly. The SP Plus projections started coming out yesterday. So it's kind of like Christmas morning for people such as Parker, who like to peruse such things. And I haven't had a chance to look at them yet. I'm sure Parker has. I'll turn it over to you, Parker. What did you kind of glean from what you saw with Nebraska's SP Plus this year?
Well, it's sort of interesting. I mean, last year Nebraska finished 34th in the SP Plus, which is just one of like many analytical anomalies with Nebraska where like the computers thought they were good and then their record obviously was horrible. And actually Fred Hoiberg said it last night as postgame. I thought it was sort of fitting. Nothing that, if it doesn't end up on the left side of the win-loss column, it doesn't matter. And that's obviously the way it was for Nebraska's football program last year. But I thought there's a couple interesting things. One, Bill Connolly, who does great work, obviously, at ESPN, his algorithm has them pegged 37th at this early juncture. Nationally, that's like just about where they finished in the rankings last year. And then the part that I think is sort of interesting is the rankings very similar, despite the fact that they've got to replace a lot, which for people who follow the program closely isn't a surprise. But I thought it was interesting, Sipple, looking at the returning production number that Bill Connolly had. 57% of Nebraska's production on each side of the ball returns by his calculation. And that's 102nd, I think, in the country. So a lot of production to replace in 2022 for Nebraska.
Yeah, now here's the thing. When you look at the returning production for Nebraska, to me, I don't want to say it's immaterial, but you're talking about a lot of new faces are going to get plugged in on that depth chart a lot, right?
Yeah, right.
Guys,
and you're talking about 57% of the production, 43% of the production to replace on each side of the ball from a team that was 3-9. You know, so it's sort of an odd conversation because the computers thought that production was useful and that Nebraska was a decent team, but obviously, like win-loss wise, they weren't.
See, these conversations are inherently odd. I mean, we say lost production from a 3-9 team, but a lost production from a team that was ranked 37th or ranked 34th.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't know. What I was getting at is you're going to have a lot of new production that they're counting on. Clearly, I mean, that's the transfer portal has affected these sorts of conversations greatly. Depending on the team, Nebraska is an example of a team that's profoundly affected because you could have literally, you go through it. I think you're going to have 2 new receivers, for sure 3 new receivers in the rotation, if not starting.
Right. Yeah.
Yep. Trey Palmer, Isaiah Garcia Castaneda. They really like Janarian Bonner.
Yep.
Those 3, Victor Jones is going to be here in the spring. I don't know.
Yeah, Bonner doesn't get here until spring.
Oh, he doesn't get here. Victor Jones is here in the spring.
Victor Jones is here now. Yeah.
Yeah, if you look at running back, you'd almost, I mean, I know within the program, the conversation could be, yeah, you might want to put Ramir Johnson, the returner, number one, but it'd be maybe a 1-1A with Anthony Grant,
Right.
who's a junior college transfer. And of course, we didn't mention the quarterback, the fact they have a new quarterback. So yeah, the production is going to come from a lot of new faces this year. That's in Nebraska's case, the portal has a profound influence on this.
Yeah, and one of the things I don't know for sure is how production is calculated in terms of the offensive line. Like Nebraska has to replace two starters on the offensive line, Matt Sichterman, the right guard, and Cam Jurgens, obviously the center. Jurgens was far and away the most productive player of that group in 2021, but there's also a ton of players back. They have a lot of playing experience. They don't have a lot of consistent high level experience. Inconsistency sort of, pockmarked that group overall last year. So that's one thing to consider. And then, yeah, like you say, the other is just, when you're talking about replacing 43% of your production on offense, I mean, the vast majority of that is Adrian Martinez, Samari Toure, and Austin Allen. So, 898 receiving yards from Samari Toure, 602 from Austin Allen, and then obviously, Adrian Martinez starting 10 games. So it's or 11 games. So yeah, it's very interesting. And then defensively, the production that you're replacing is a little bit more balanced. Obviously, a lot of it's JoJo Doman and Cam Taylor-Britt, but you've got 4 defensive linemen that played snaps to varying degrees. Obviously, Damian Daniels and Ben Stilley played more, and then DeAndre Thomas, and then Jordan Riley. A couple other guys that have left too. So it's a little bit more spread around what you're trying to produce, the production you're trying to replace on defense. Obviously, Markel Dismuke and Deontay Williams are central in that conversation too. I wrote this week, like it is what it is. They're just interesting numbers. They don't determine whether Nebraska is going to win or lose games this fall, but it does make for sort of an interesting picture.
Yeah, this is the time of the year to talk about it. And so as far as what Nebraska is doing right now, just in the midst of winter conditioning. I mean,
yeah.
But spring ball will be, in the
kind of like us, just in the midst.
The midst. And then spring ball for people
in the midst.
Here's a question. See, this is the kind of things that a podcast can fill in the old man's head. Spring ball begins February 28th. When is that spring game again?
April 9th.
April 9th. Okay. Early. That's early.
Yeah. Well, this isn't the entire reason why they're doing it. There's a couple reasons why spring ball is a little bit earlier this year. And they are, one practical consideration is that right after the spring game, they're tearing out the turf and installing new turf, which takes some time. And I think I don't know this 100%, but I think the idea is that that's going to be done by the time graduation happens in May. And then the other part of it is that I believe the evaluation period, which is a critical point on the calendar in terms of recruiting, and there hasn't been one since 2019. There's normally, before COVID, there was 5 or 6 weeks of evaluation that happened in the spring, or a month that happens in the spring. And there have been times when Nebraska spring ball has been a little later, where coaches actually haven't been able to go out on the road right at the beginning of that evaluation period because spring ball is still happening. So this year, that evaluation period begins April 15th, spring games April 9th, you get a couple days when spring ball ends, and then the coaches will go out on the road for that entire evaluation period from mid-April into May. So that's the other consideration was they wanted to be able to maximize their time on the road, so they had to be done by April 15th.
Should we note the schedule change too? That we'll be headed to Nebraska. We'll be headed to Piscataway, New Jersey on October 7th for a Friday night game. I've stopped I am having more
Friday
senior
night banger in Piscataway.
That's right.
Yeah, I am having senior moments. I've been calling it East Piscataway for some reason. I think it's just Piscataway.
Well, it's east of here, which is fine.
Yeah. I'm
East
thinking of East
Piscataway.
Rutherford.
Where is it? Are you thinking of East Rutherford?
Yes, that's the hang up.
Gonna go cover the game in the Meadowlands. Maybe talk to Bill Parcells while you're out there.
Catch Bruce at MetLife, and then head down to Piscataway.
Yeah, just go look for Jimmy Hoffa at the 50.
I think if you want to make it even more confusing, campus itself, I think that campus is in New Brunswick, and then
Brunswick.
New Brunswick. Yeah, I don't know where Old Brunswick is, and then
Not Old Brunswick or East Brunswick.
Yeah,
Look it up.
All right, yeah, but anyway, so Nebraska will have a game this will be Nebraska's first away game of the year on October 7th, which is notable. It'll follow a home game against Indiana. And then the week after that, Nebraska will play at Purdue. After the Rutgers game, they'll play at Purdue. So it's that's sort of a sneaky little tough spot in the schedule.
Yeah.
Especially consider what the mental state will be like among the traveling media corps after doing Rutgers and Purdue back to back on the road.
Jesus.
Yeah.
I was thinking about a podcast series, Sipple, where we go through and we just regale people who probably wouldn't be interested at all about what it was like to travel in the fall of 2020 during COVID. This is what I thought of when that change got announced the other day, because that trip to Rutgers in December of 2020 was so bizarre.
It was. I don't know where to start with that, except this. I think Nebraska got home from the game and just said, hell with it. We're done.
Yeah, we're not playing anymore.
And really, you can't blame them after that.
After they got home from 4 a.m. from Rutgers.
They kept the doors open. There was nobody there, and it was cold as hell. Like, it was cold as hell that night in New Jersey. They kept the doors open, Baz, the press box, to try to
In the press box.
Yeah, to keep the airflow going, but you like couldn't feel your fingers basically. It's a tiny press box. They didn't have any food. So to get dinner, what you did was you like went down these like iron stairs to a concourse that was unlit.
They
They
hosed them down before the game, so they'd be nice.
Pretty much, yeah. And then you like knocked on this door, and like like Vinny or whoever like handed you a Jersey Mike sub through the door.
Yeah.
That was
Vinny, who just got done cutting off somebody's fingers for not paying off a mob debt, handed you a Jersey Mike's.
Oh, it was a bizarre. Yeah, it was a rough one. It was a rough one. Yeah, going to Piscataway and then going to West Lafayette is a little like going to your wife and saying, honey, we saved a bunch of money, so we're going to Cleveland for vacation. Let's go to Cleveland. Or maybe Milwaukee would be nice this time of year.
Hey, don't disparage Milwaukee, okay?
It's close to your home.
Easy with the Milwaukee slander.
It's about enough.
So anyway, October 7th, Friday night game.
The day after my birthday. Happy birthday to me. I'll be in my basement watching that game while you guys are in Piscataway.
You'll be in your
Yeah, I don't think the Journal Star is going to fly me to New Jersey to cover Nebraska Rutgers on a Friday night. I don't think that's going to happen.
So you'll be working on your birthday. This just keeps getting happier. This conversation just keeps getting happier.
Well, there was one year we had a Wisconsin game on my birthday up there, and we walked out of Camp Randall at like 2 a.m. Didn't we, Paul?
All right.
Yeah,
It was crap.
What else to cover football wise? I think for people. I hope people understand it's a little. This is about as slow a time as there is on the calendar.
Yeah,
This little 3 or 4 week stretch after signing day.
It's interesting. So Rutgers has, this is one thing we could talk about just for a minute. I wrote about this earlier this week. Rutgers has a new defensive coordinator. I believe it's Joe Harisniak, who is at Minnesota. He was at Minnesota as a defensive assistant coach before. And Sipple, I don't know I don't know what got me to thinking about this yesterday or a couple days ago, but out of the 11 FBS teams that Nebraska plays this fall, 9 of them have at least one new coordinator, so far this offseason. And you have to imagine, I don't know about coordinators, but you have to imagine that assistant coaching carousel isn't totally dead yet, especially with NFL teams, still filling out their staffs and all of that. And I just found it interesting that, it's like it's been a huge offseason of change, sort of like we were talking about earlier with the offense. And Nebraska's got a new offensive coordinator in Mark Whipple, but they're certainly not the only ones. I mean, there's 4 teams out of 11 FBS teams on Nebraska's schedule that have an entirely new set of coordinators. Georgia Southern, which has a new head coach, Clay Helton, and 2 new coordinators. Oklahoma also has a new head coach, Brent Venables, 2 new coordinators. And then both Indiana and Michigan have completely new sets of coordinators too. And then the only 2 on the schedule, this will shock you, the only 2 on the schedule that haven't changed a coordinator so far this year are Northwestern and Iowa.
It's heartening, I think, if you're a Nebraska fan, because in that conversation, it puts you on even ground against teams that if they were, if they returned their head coach and 2 coordinators, have probably an advantage on you. I'm not going to say a little advantage. That's an advantage. So that's really an interesting stat that 9 of the teams Nebraska will play have changed at least 1 coordinator.
Yeah. And, some of it's like Oklahoma, it's amazing. I wrote about this when Casey Thompson committed to Nebraska, I think. But man, the Oklahoma game is just going to look so much different than it did last year. Same 2 teams, 364 days apart or whatever. And you've got, 3 of the 4 coordinators will have changed. Both starting quarterbacks will have changed. The offensive play caller on both sides will have changed. It's going to be a lot different, but it's going to be interesting.
A lot of personnel. Yeah. A lot of personnel will have changed. And I don't want to go too far down this road. And I think there's a danger in overstating something like this, but you're going to see that more in college football.
Yeah.
Personnel is going to change from year to year more. Not at Iowa, which has gotten no players from the portal, but that's the only Big Ten team who hasn't delved into the portal.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, Nebraska, I'm looking forward to that opener because it's going to look a lot different. God, man, it's going to be incredible to see it. Really,
it's amazing. Iowa, no coordinator changes, no players in the portal at all. They're just rolling along. The only major development this offseason was a extension for Kirk Ferentz through 2029.
Yeah, which is that's incredible.
Yeah.
If you think about it, the guy's locked in until he's 74, something like that. So yeah, but if Nebraska had gotten to the Big Ten championship game, there wouldn't have, how many changes would there have been?
Yeah, no, right. Yeah. Probably a lot fewer.
Yeah.
Simple, you're locked until you're 74, aren't you?
Oh, yeah. I don't have any hobbies, so I got to find something. It could involve some other form of work, I suppose, but I'm locked in.
2029, you'll be just hitting your prime by that point.
Hitting my prime, right? Yeah.
You'll be so virile it won't even be funny in 2029.
You'll have 2 radio shows by then.
Yeah, it'll be a concerning level of virility in 2029.
That's his famous words. Grab that bag, Simple. You're still virile.
You'll not only have a sports talk radio show, but you'll also be on Boomer Radio.
Yeah,
Boomer Radio.
Yeah, hey Baz, I was listening. Trixie canceled my Sirius for some reason. Yeah, and so I just said I'm going to make the best of a rough situation here, and I scoured the radio, FM and AM, and came across Boomer Radio. It's actually pretty good. Yeah, they play oldies, as you'd expect.
What's Trixie doing?
I got to talk to her about it.
Man, you want me to talk to her?
Probably not.
I'd love to talk to Trixie. I'll stop. We'll stop there. We'll stop.
Guys, you should try Spotify. You just Google them; they're in the news.
Yeah.
Any other football we need to touch on here? Bless you.
I think we're good, Baz. I think we need to hand the mic over to you.
Let's do it. Let's talk a little hoops. Palmer, you want to talk some hoops? Huskers off the schneid, 78-65 win over Minnesota last night inside a raucous Pinnacle Bank Arena where there were at least 5,000 people, maybe. Led the whole way, led by as many as 20 in the second half. Played pretty solid. Let's just get this out there at the top. Minnesota's not great. They didn't play very good last night, but Nebraska had lost 19 consecutive games against power conference competition. 19, Palmer. You believe that? 15 straight against Big Ten teams. They're obviously 0-12 this year in the Big Ten. And look, they got embarrassed in their last game against Northwestern at home. As bad as a performance as there's been under Fred Hoiberg since he started here a couple of years ago, 3 years ago. So I didn't really know what to expect going into it. You know, it was a deal where I thought if Nebraska played hard, they would have a chance to win. But you don't always know if they're going to play hard. And if they didn't play hard, Minnesota could have come in here and done the same thing.
You got it. Yeah.
Oh, right out of the chute, stealing a layup on Minnesota's first possession for Alonzo Verge. Second bucket's another turnover and a lob from Trey Bryce McGowan's. They hit a three, then another lob from Trey Bryce. All of a sudden it's 9-2, like 3 minutes into the game, and you're going, whoa, okay. They showed up, and they're really active. They forced 18 turnovers. Minnesota only averages 9 turnovers a game, which is fourth in the country. They had 12 at halftime. You know, and then they came out of the locker room, you know, after building that lead, and they extended the lead. You know, we saw Michigan, they went into the locker room up 7, and a couple minutes into the second half, they're down 10. You know, it evaporated like that. And that didn't happen last night. They came out on attack in the second half. They built the lead. It wasn't a little sloppy the last couple minutes, yeah, but Nebraska's cushion was such that it didn't really matter. And it kind of gave you a glimpse of what it can look like. And again, Minnesota's not great. Minnesota's 2-10 in the Big Ten. They've won one game in 2022, which is the same number as Nebraska's won since the calendar turned. This wasn't a great team, but look, we've seen how Nebraska's played at times this year. It was sorely needed, and they got good performances from their best players and got a much needed win here.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I'm not in the business of diminishing Big Ten wins.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to, and it'd be really disingenuous for me to do it here because I thought going in, I said going in, it was possible that Minnesota's guards would outclass Nebraska's because that's the strength of Minnesota's team. And they didn't. Yeah. Verge really rose to the occasion. I thought Minnesota would have the best guard on the floor, and that night Nebraska had it. So I'm not, and they play tough. Minnesota's a tough team. They played with 7 guys. They played well with 7 guys some of the time. But they're a tough-minded team.
Yeah.
So I thought Nebraska would have its hands full, and it really didn't. Like you said, it led throughout. It got to 7. I thought the critical part of the game was, correct me if I'm wrong, but it got to 7, and Verge was shooting free throws. He missed 2. On the second, Nebraska got the offensive rebound, and CJ Wilcher, his step back 3 to push it to 10, and that was pretty much it at that point.
Yeah. That came at a critical time because Bryce McGowan's just picked up his 3rd foul. Like, you know, he was on the bench. Nebraska wasn't playing great. It's 8 points. You're missing free throws. And then that happens, and all of a sudden it's a 12-0 run, and you lead by 12. You know, and need to give credit to CJ Wilcher. I think he's shooting something like 48% from 3-point range since January 1st.
He came in billed as a pure shooter, and it's really evident. If he gets a good look, he's in good shape. He really has a beautiful release. Beautiful release. That game played out exactly how Nebraska needed it to. Like they really needed to get off to a good start. They did that. They needed Minnesota to not play great. That happened. They forced turnovers and got out and ran. That happened. And then they extended it in the second. If you were going to ask Fred Hoiberg how he was going to draw it up, that's probably exactly what he would have told you. We need to start fast. We need to start fast out of the locker room at halftime. We need to build that lead and not have to worry about hanging on in a tight game. And that's exactly what they did. So now all of a sudden you kind of look at the schedule. They're at Iowa Super Bowl Sunday. Iowa's okay. You know, it's not a great Iowa team. It's a good Iowa team. They'll give Nebraska plenty of problems. But look, the schedule's manageable. We've talked about it before. This isn't going to be Nebraska's last chance to win. They play like they did last night with that kind of effort. They're going to have a shot.
And I got to grab my son here because he's running off. But yeah, Nebraska, they needed a win badly. Obviously, they got one last night and they did exactly what they needed to do to get it.
Iowa Sunday at 1:00. That's Super Bowl Sunday. Then Maryland, not till then there's a 5-day gap before they play Maryland at home. So those are the next two. Those are, I'm not going to start trying to predict games for Nebraska. I've been horrible in that count. I finally got one right last night. I did think they'd win that game. But yeah, so why is there a 5-day gap between Iowa and Maryland? Is that just the way the schedule fell?
That's just the way the
you
schedule broke.
gap
Yeah,
once in a while.
I mean, there's nothing to it other than
Nefarious.
that. I mean,
there's nothing nefarious
Yeah.
about that.
There's nothing nefarious about a 5-day break.
there's a 4-day break between Maryland and the Northwestern road game after that. So it's just kind of one of those stretches. That's the way it fell on the calendar. That's how it's going to work out. So,
All right, baseball.
Baseball.
Let's switch to baseball.
Season opener a week from tomorrow, a week from Friday, down in lovely Huntsville, Texas. Sam Houston State 4-game series. We talked to Will Bolt yesterday, didn't we? We talked to Will yesterday, didn't we, Palmer? Yep.
I don't know
Talk
what
to
that
Will
movie's
Bolt.
making there is. What are you doing, Palmer?
Got a little bit of a runny nose. It's that time of year. Starting to get tired. As we all are. Yeah. Talked to Will yesterday. Talked to Kyle Perry. Talked to Griffin Everett, 2 of the captains. And you saw it, Sip. It's just Will was who Will is. Just has that air of confidence, carries himself in a certain way that gives that kind of commands respect, demands respect. And he likes his team. I think it's going to be different. It's, I don't know that they have the stars they had last year. They don't have a Schwellenbach, and I don't know if they have a Povich. You all right there, bud? They don't have a Povich. They don't have a Jackson Hallmark. One of those dudes, at least not yet. That's not just a total badass. Is going to kind of set the tone, but I think they're a little deeper this year. He really likes their freshman class. There's going to be a couple of those freshmen that play right away. They really like their infield. They love the athleticism there, especially with guys like Bryce Matthews and Max Anderson. You're getting Colby Gomez back, probably as your closer. They've really liked his recovery from a shoulder injury. So I think they feel like they're in a pretty good spot. They got to figure out the starting rotation. That's probably the biggest question mark here. They should know more kind of after this weekend and kind of have it settled down. But they need to have 4 guys ready to go right out of the gate. They've got a 4-game series to start out the season. So you've got to get 4 guys ready. Yeah, and they've got some options. Will said it a couple of weeks ago. They had about 7 or 8 guys they were looking at. So we'll see what it looks like kind of after this week.
Yeah. So he said this weekend they will have scrimmages, plural, and he thought he'd settle that staff this weekend. After this weekend, I'd say Monday, he'll have a pretty good idea. If not, be ready to announce his staff.
Yeah. And you'll be over there with the radar gun over the weekend, so you'll have a pretty good idea what it's going to look like. This will be
in the dugout. Will I don't know what Will would say if I materialized in the dugout.
Will would send Rob Childress over to just be on your rear end is what he would do.
So now, Baz, question: you would expect Kyle Perry to be one of those starters?
Yeah, absolutely.
Friday or Saturday.
Yeah, probably Friday or Saturday. And you listen to Kyle talk, and he's very at ease with the media. He's funny. He's quick-witted. But that dude's a competitor, man. Like we saw it last year, when that clincher against Arkansas, he started and he went out and shut them down. And it was really, really, really impressive. That's a guy that came off Tommy John, hadn't pitched a lot. And you throw him out there in front of 12,000 fans that were ready to celebrate, ready to go to a super regional. And Kyle did the job. It was just super impressive. He's probably the best. I hate comparing guys because they're different guys, they're different people, they play different positions. He's kind of the Jackson Hallmark of this team, I think. He's a tone setter. He's kind of got that attitude. And guys are going to follow him. He's a national leader or a natural leader. So, I really like him at the front of that rotation. A guy like Shea Shanneman is going to be in competition for that. We'll see about some of these younger guys like Drew Christo, but Mason Ornelas, the Texas A&M transfer, is going to be in line for maybe one of those spots. Dawson McCarville, the Grand Canyon transfer. they've got some options there, no doubt about it. But yeah, Kyle Perry, I think, is kind of the guy right now at the front of that rotation. So it's going to be really interesting to see. It's an absolute disaster around here right now, in case you didn't notice.
Now, here's
Yes.
the deal. There's probably someone breaking into your house right now. So you
There's
might
probably
wanna-
there are people in my house right now that I don't even know about. They're
This is going
carrying
to
out my
be this is going to be
television right now.
valuable information for LPD when they come to investigate the whole
There's
break-in.
people in my house.
That's literally the first time Gus has made any noise all day. Was just right now.
Okay.
He's a
stay
big
with
fan
the-
of Mason or Nealis.
Stay
He's
with
a
the
big
baseball
Mason
theme. I don't think people understand that Colby Gomez, who's a big reliever, threw about 95, 97 in 2019, but hasn't pitched since 2019.
Pitched a little bit in 20. He started for him in the pandemic year. Pitched.
Oh,
made a few
did he
appearances.
appear?
Yeah, he was a starter for him. Didn't throw a ton, but again, they only played 12 games or whatever it was. So they
Yeah.
made 3 or 4 appearances.
So hasn't played or hasn't pitched for any
It's-
sustained period since
You-
2019. But he could be their closer. I mean, that could be a
You
major
listen-
lead. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, you listen to Will talk about Colby Gomez, and it's pretty clear that Colby Gomez came back from some stuff. And Will almost gets emotional talking about, just what he's dealt with. And how he was a freshman All-American and kind of had it figured out. Really, really good athlete, natural, and then just had it taken away. Couldn't pitch last year on a really good team, and had this injury, this shoulder surgery, and probably was questioning a lot of what he was doing, how it was going to look going forward. But Will, I was talking to Will yesterday after his podium appearance, and they got him in throwing bullpens in the fall, and he's up to 93. He's reaching back to get to 93, and they're kind of going, oh, okay, he's getting it. And now he's sitting 93. He's touching 95. He's kind of almost back to where he was pre-injury. It's going to be really interesting to talk to Colby when we get a chance to do that, because he's another one of those guys. It's kind of like Kyle Perry. He's just a competitor. He's a dog, and
Yes.
Will has the famous quote from last year at the regional. You need to have that dog in you, and you can't be afraid. You got to be ready for the throwdown. And Colby's one of those guys. He's no nonsense, no frills. He's going to go out there and attack you. So if they have him, if you got Will in a private moment, he'd probably tell you it was like picking up a free agent, because I think they know what they got with him, and he's got a chance to be really, really good.
Man, and having that guy in the back as
Oh,
a
yeah.
closer, gigantic. It's
Well,
so
look at last year. Look at Spencer Schwellenbach last year.
Mhm.
Teams couldn't touch him at the end of games. So, yeah, if he's able to stay healthy, yeah, I'm not saying he's Spencer Schwellenbach, but he can play some first base for him. They're probably going to have him hit a little bit, and you have him close. And you tell the 6'5", 230-pound dude to go out there and throw gas for an inning. That's a pretty good place to start for your closer. So I think they're in a pretty good spot right now. Now you got to go play the games and see how it looks, but it's going to be really, really, really fascinating to watch this team come together, because they got
Yeah.
a chance again to right at the top.
The other thing he said that caught my eye or caught my attention was he likes the power up and down the lineup.
They're hitting more homers than practice.
We haven't always seen that in recent years. The
No.
Erstad teams weren't really like that. Anderson's teams, no, not the end. You didn't have a lot of that. So
Even last year, they didn't have a ton of it.
yeah, he
Got
said
guys
up
that
and
can
down
do
the
it.
lineup, there's guys that can gap power guys,
Yeah. Well, he said it. You said we're hitting more home runs in practice, and look, you can't rely on the home run, obviously. And Nebraska's offense was just fine last year, the way it operated. They want to be able to do everything. They want to be able to hit for power. They want to be able to bunt, move runners, hit and run, all those sorts of things. They want to be able to do a little bit of everything. But if they've got a little more power up and down the lineup, that's certainly not going to hurt them. And it's certainly not going to hurt them when you get in the Big Ten play and you get in a regional play. When you're in a tournament situation, you're facing an entire pitching staff, and you're sending up a bunch of guys that are threats to hit the long ball. Pretty good spot. So again, some of these guys are going to have to prove themselves. A lot of these guys that are going to play, we probably haven't seen a whole lot of before this year. So for a team that won the Big Ten and returns a decent amount of guys, there's plenty of questions about how it's going to look, but it sure seems promising right now.
Who's the 3-hole hitter? Would that be Anderson?
Sounds like they're going to move Max Anderson up. They want to get, he batted 5-hole last year, but they want to get him batting in the first inning. So he'll probably stick him in the 2 or the 3-hole. Bryce Matthews is another candidate to be in one of those spots. He's got real power. He's a lot stronger this year. He showed some good power last year. I think the Maryland game, he had 2 or 3 home runs and hit another one of the warning track. He's got that kind of power. So those 2 guys are going to be in the middle of your lineup. It remains to be seen who the table setter is going to be. I think that's kind of an unknown spot, but you've got some proven bats you can put in the middle of that lineup.
Cam Chick is in that conversation.
Cam Chick's got some pop up from the left side. Yeah, he'll play outfield. They really like him in the outfield. I don't think they want to mess with him there just because they're going to be replacing, so much of what they had in the outfield last year. So you can put him out there and trust him. You can trust his bat, and then, you start looking. Griffin Everett is a guy that I think could take a step forward at the plate this year. He hit 280 last year, but flashed a little bit of power. Leighton Banjoff, a guy that was injured last year, is a guy that's got a little bit of pop. They've got some guys that they really like, but it's just a matter of now you got to go out and do it without the safety net of what you had around you last year too.
Is it getting ahead of ourselves to say who would be the top 2 or 3 teams in the Big Ten?
Well, Nebraska's going to be the preseason favorite, no doubt. They're the only team that's been ranked in the preseason national polls. Michigan, will be there. Indiana is going to be there. Ohio State has really, really good pitching. I think they're going to be right there. Those are probably your top 4-ish, I would say. But Nebraska is going to be the favorite, and they might be the overwhelming favorite when we see there's not an official preseason Big Ten poll or anything. And even last year, Nebraska wasn't picked on the top 6 of last year's preseason poll, and they won the conference by 4.5 games. So there's probably a team we're not even talking about. But it's going to be Nebraska, and it's going to be a lot of teams chasing Nebraska. They're going to have that target on their back this year for sure.
All right, next week. So it starts Friday, 4-game series at Sam Houston State in Huntsville, Texas. And I don't know where Huntsville is.
Yeah, I can get that for you here. Hang on.
Oh yeah, you can Google that. That's Google. We
can Google that. Let's put it in the Google machine and see what we come up with here. I looked it up once already. It's home of the Texas Prison Museum, Huntsville, Texas.
Nice. Yeah. Is that like East Texas?
It's straight north of Houston. Probably, I don't know, hour and a half straight north of Houston.
Ooh, down there.
It's down there. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't get some it's kind of weather.
Kind of like Houston, College Station, and Huntsville kind of form a little triangle.
Oh, hello. Okay, good.
There you go.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And look, that's a good program. They get guys. Obviously, being in Texas, they get guys. But they've been a consistent regional team. They made a super regional a couple of years ago. That's going to be a good test right out of the gate for Nebraska. So that's a good matchup to open the season.
All right, I think we can.
There it is.
Find it up there.
That went well, I think, on my end. I don't know why you guys struggled so much, but everything went pretty smoothly here. So maybe next time you guys can get your crap together when we do this.
It's funny because I just now noticed that mask. It's weird.
I didn't even know you had one on. Yeah.
Yeah. For folks that haven't seen it, I'm wearing a mask right now in my own home because I had COVID last week, and I have a young son who I'm trying not to get sick. So my young son is currently pulling books off a bookshelf off to my left here.
The best part about this
people in your home.
Right when you were getting into the depth of what you were talking about, he was pulling at the.
Yeah, he had his fingers
snapping at against her
like this. President immediately stick his fingers in his mouth after doing that. Here he is again. Say goodbye to the people, Palmer.
There's people in your house, Palmer.
Palmer, there's people in our house taking our television. Are you concerned? Nope, not concerned one bit. Nope. All right, guys. Thanks for